one sport where you must learn the fundamentals if you're going to have any fun out of it.
That mountain, Mount Equinox, 11 square miles. He owned the entire thing. Our little friend, James Eddy, he was along this road, on a horse, on a mission. And today, Mother Nature has taken back over. You have to learn a little patience.
Yes.
Maxell T60, 60-minute. It's good stuff. Hey everybody, Sean Harrington, curator of the Manchester Historical Society, and this is a new episode of Timestamp. Remember these VHS tapes? You know, people have shoeboxes and old bags full of these, and this one particular one came to us from Kathleen Wright.
So I pulled this one container out, and I had all of the little tape recorders, and they still worked, believe it or not. And I thought, what is this? And I almost threw them all away. And then I thought, maybe I should take a look at that and see what that is. And there was an after-school project that was done with Georgine Bonifanti and the Vermont Folklife Center. And Elise's project was,
when we started to ask around about who we could interview, Mrs. Orton turned out to be the person that we picked, and she was just the best. I mean, I couldn't ever look back and say, you know, it would have been a little richer should somebody else ever, because she was just a dynamite person.
her memory was phenomenal.
Incredible.
I'm really, really excited that we get to be able to present this with the public.
Interviewing Mrs. Orton, May 20th, 2002. What years were you at MEMS?
I was at the Manchester Village School from 1916. I entered. I became 6 years old in February, but I couldn't go to school until the following September. I didn't quite get in earlier. I thought it was 1916. Is that right?
Video? Yes, it says. Go ahead, Elise.
This is Elise Penji, and I'm interviewing Mrs. Orton, and today the date is May 20th, 2002.
Quickly, speak slowly and clearly.
I'm just going to go over some of the questions before we start. Like, I have some questions about what years you were at the school.
For 3 years, I rode behind horses. It was the school team that took us, and it had there were two what we call bobsleds, and then a large box-like structure on top of that with seats along the side, 2 seats on like this on each side. In those days, they didn't have snowplows. They rolled the roads after it snowed, and through the winter, the roads were not even. I mean, they were not flat like this to go along. And the horses would plow, go through deep snow. Their feet would go down in that deep. And on Dalton Hill, the road was very, very slanted. And Mr. Hanley, who drove the horses, picked us up, was a heavy man. So when we got to the tippy part, he would always slide up, sit on the high part. But one day he didn't, and we tipped over, and we kids went flying into the snow. If the temperature was 0 or colder, my little friend who lived down the road, half a mile down the road, she and I couldn't go to school. We would freeze to death. So we had a lot of absent marks on our report cards through the winter time. I think probably by the time I got to the 3rd grade, my father started carrying us to school in his Model T Ford. And the older boys, including my 2 brothers, probably rode on the running boards. Possibly I can still, I believe, see them riding on the hood of the car. We must have been a real sight, kids sticking out in the front seat. I always rode in the front seat. My father had me riding here, back of the steering wheel, with 2 other kids, and an older one holding a younger one, so that probably there were 1, 2, 3, 4 of us kids in the front seat with my father. And that's against the law now.
What were the school hours?
From 9 in the morning until noon, and then we had 1 hour for lunch, and then we start again at 1 o'clock, and then we had another recess mid-afternoon, and we got out at 4 o'clock. But I think in the early grade, the first and second grades, we got out at 3:30.
What did you do with your recess time?
We played games, and in the wintertime, the children who lived near school, who walked to school, would bring their sleds with them, and we couldn't wait to get out at recess and slide down a small hill right near the school. They even have like flexible flyer sleds with this ones that were.
I think ours was the top school in Manchester. And a very nice lady in town gave a year's subscription to the St. Nicholas magazine to the highest person who had the highest average in each of the 3 rooms. That was the whole room. I mean,
Right. A lot of kids.
3rd, 4th, and 5th grades together, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and I got the St. Nicholas for.
Wow.
Now, what was the St. Nicholas magazine?
It was a magazine for young people. This lady, I think, was the daughter of Mark Skinner, who gave the money for Mark Skinner Library to the town. I don't mean to be bragging, but we had we had good teachers, and I mean good, and I liked it. I liked to learn, and I paid attention, so I was not. It just happened that way.
You know, Dorset had a lot of wonderful schools. I think Manchester had at one time 16.
Well, I'm sure it did, and it did when Anna Dufresne was going to school, because she went to all of 4 or 5 different schools during her 8 years and then she went on to Burton.
Now, you went to Burton as well.
Yes.
Yep.
But I was the only daughter, and my mother made all my dresses until my senior year at Burton, and she bought my senior dance dress, which was a big event. But up to that point, she even made my dress for the junior prom. And I had a lot of dresses.
Oh, this was our gym suit.
Oh, at least you got to see this gym suit. So you had to change for gym then? They had to change your clothes.
That was our outfit. We wore sneakers and stockings, see?
Yeah.
Black stockings and navy blue bloomers. And
Right.
it was like a sailor top. We had a waving iron.
I think we have.
It had 2 prongs, and then it had this sort of wavy thing that fitted over the top, and we'd stick the 2 prongs down into the chimney of the kerosene lamp. We didn't have electricity at the farm. And you stick the 2 prongs down there and heat them, and then go under your hair, under a lock of hair with that, and clamp down the other one, and you'd have a wave.
That's a lot of trouble.
That's a lot of work.
Oh, we
girls.
did that before going to school. This is class day when I graduated. And here's my music piano teacher playing the piano out on the lawn in front of the school. These were our graduation dresses. So we all had them the same pattern, and we had scallop dresses. We were snobs, I'm sorry to say.
You were
ashamed of
the
it.
clique.
She was the in crowd.
Yes.
And another friend that I loved dearly, Dorothy Cunningham from East Dorset. I just loved her. We were good, very good friends, but she was not cliquey. The Dorset people were friendlier than the Manchester people. I'm ashamed of it. Absolutely. We went to
The Dorset Quarry.
Dorset Quarry, and those were the most wonderful days. I just loved it. We hiked, and these are my friends.
Was the quarry still active at that time?
No,
No, it wasn't.
and this was one of my favorite teachers, Pearl Blackburn. She taught American history. Absolutely wonderful. She would assign a certain amount, certain number of pages for us to read, preparing for the next day. And she never asked us a single question, but she lectured. The 45, our classes at Burton were 45 minutes long. This was a Model T Ford that my father bought. It wouldn't run. And my brother, when my brother Roger got to be 16, so he could drive to school, because we didn't have free transportation to Burton's. And so my brother Roger drove that. Then later, I think this was the one that he fixed. That's my
Like you have the milk cans in the back there.
Took the milk can up to our farm, where my father processed it.
Now, we interviewed Jerry Wilcox for an oral history project. Gerald. And it seems like I remember him saying something about when the Wilcox family first came to Manchester, they were at the Wilburtons and then they switched.
Yes.
Is that right? That is the neatest story.
It's an amazing story, because the man who owned the Wilbur farm was not, his name wasn't Wilbur, and I don't remember what it was, but Grandpa bought a small farm next to the Wilbur farm. And the owner of the Wilbur farm came to my grandfather and said he would like to buy Grandpa's farm. And at that time, the Pettibone farm had come on the market, and that's this farm. And Grandpa said, if you buy the Pettibone farm for me, I'll give you this farm.
That's how they ended up.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that a wonderful story? Instead
That
of
is a wonderful
finding out how much this would cost and say, that's what I need for the farm, he put it that way. And an article, Mary Bort reproduced an article from the Manchester Journal back at that time, and it said the biggest real estate transaction of any time took place in 1 week, and it included the transfer of this farm to E.A. Wilcox, who was my grandfather, and his little farm transferred to the man who acquired it. Well, this is the big house.
That's the big house,
That's the farmhouse, and this part here is the original part of the house that goes way back, well, to middle of the 1760s. It's one of the first houses that was built in Manchester. This is the barn that burned, and this is my house.
The barn looks so new in this picture.
Oh, that was a beautiful barn.
So who had the camera that did such a good
My
job
mother
of keeping this
My
history?
mother had the camera, and there she is taking a picture. Oh, probably of two of us standing next to her maple
Because
syrup. She made maple candy and sugar, and then sold that along with syrup, because we're right on Route 7. It's a picture of them. This is my cousin Althea. And here's Howard and me tumbling off the bicycle because I was riding on the crossbar. My brother Howard gave me a camera when I graduated from the 8th grade, so I took these pictures.
And did you?
I had two most wonderful brothers. in the whole world, really and truly. They were just wonderful brothers. Yeah, that was my cat. That's my grandfather, Wilcox. And this is Aunt Lois and my mother. Aunt Lois never married, but she was a maiden lady on the farm. Oh, here's my father with the first grandchild, Bruce Wilcox, who's now 60 years old, I guess.
You saved so many things. People these days throw out so much. It's great that you saved all of that, because now your children and your grandchildren and great-grandchildren can all look, see that,
Yeah.
which is great.
Well, it just happened.
You have a wonderful memory.
My son says I remember things way back, but not things immediately behind me. Okay.
Did you like school?
Yes.